It was just another Tuesday when I noticed something had changed. The sun had been hiding behind the clouds all day, casting a soft, slightly nostalgic light on the kitchen table. I sat there, sipping my coffee and reflecting on life. In my 46 years, I thought I had it all figured out by now, or at least I like to think so. A successful career, a cozy home, and a stable routine guaranteed at least some sense of security. But damn, it all seemed completely empty. Lately, I'd been lost in my daydreams more and more, when suddenly there was a knock on the door. It wasn't an ordinary knock, it was so indefinable, as if whoever was behind the door was questioning whether to come at all. I got up, opened the door, and saw Michael, my 22-year-old neighbor. He was holding a small envelope and looked almost scared. "Hey, hi, sorry to bother you," he said with a tremor in his voice. But there was something important in his tone, something that kept me on my toes. Michael and I had been neighbors for a few years, and we didn't have a particularly close relationship. Sometimes we'd just intercept a few phrases over the fence and share a few jokes. I'd always thought he was a nice guy, but now he seemed unsure. "Is something wrong?" I asked, sensing the tension hanging between us. I stepped to the side, letting him inside, and motioned for him to sit at the kitchen table. He froze for a moment, staring at the envelope in his hands, as if trying to collect his thoughts. Finally, pulling himself together, he advanced the envelope toward me. "I need to tell you something, and I honestly don't know how," he uttered, looking terribly nervous. I took the envelope and slowly opened it. Inside was a single folded piece of paper, and my heart pounded faster as I began to read. "I need your help. You're the only one who can understand. Please don't tell anyone about this." An unexplainable feeling pounded in my chest as I looked at Michael. There was a spark of something wrong in his eyes, something hidden that I needed to unravel. "Michael, what's going on?" I asked, sinking into his anxious gaze. He was silent for a long time, taking a deep breath, and then finally began to speak. "It's something I've been keeping inside for a long time. I've never revealed it to anyone, not even my family." His words sounded like thunder. I wondered what could be so terrible that he dared to tell me. There was such pain in his voice that I felt the room suddenly feel too crowded. He continued, "I've been living a lie, you know? And I don't know how much longer I can take it." I looked at him, and in that moment I realized that he wasn't just the guy from the next yard. He had a real story that he was probably ashamed to talk about. He was looking for a way to get rid of that burden, and now relied on me to understand it. "I don't know where to start," he said, his voice shaking with tension. Inside, I was scared. I knew he was about to reveal secrets that could seriously change the way I looked to him. "I wasn't always the way you know me now," he said, and his words hung in the air. "There was an old life. Another life full of mistakes." He fell silent, his gaze sliding downward. I felt his anxiety creep into me, and I sat closer to let him know I was here. He continued, "Not everything was perfect. There was a lot of pain and regret that I can't shake off on my own." I felt the truth begin to torment him. Every word he said echoed in my soul and in my mind. In that moment, I realized that no matter how horrible his truth was, I wasn't going to judge him. I just wanted to help. "Michael, you don't have to tell me everything right now," I said in a soothing tone. I was trying to make him feel like he wasn't alone. I was as willing to accept his pain as he was willing to open up. There was a silence between us that was filled with understanding and feelings that were probably slowly starting to change. I knew that this conversation could be a catalyst for change for both of us. Everything that was happening was real, it was important, and it was ours alone. When Michael started talking about his debts, I felt everything inside me go cold. Shock permeated every cell, and my mind was spinning with the words that came before them, the secrets that crawled out of his mouth like demons from a dark past. I couldn't believe that a man I thought was almost a child could be in such a difficult situation as he described. Loans, relentless creditors, the threat of losing his home. It was as if my mind froze, unable to process this information. It was like being hit by a thief, that weight transfer that was weighing on me. I realized it wasn't just his problem, it was my mistake, that I had mistaken him for someone without such dark secrets. My wide heart had accepted him too quickly, and now I felt betrayed. The feeling of vulnerability burned, and I began thrashing around the kitchen like some undigested fly in despair. How can I help? A thought pierced me. I suddenly remembered my options. With a quick glance at him with a face full of determination, I said to myself, we just need to find a solution to get through this. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the real estate agent. Maybe we should sell his house? Yeah, and we can live together, start over. My head was spinning, already knowing it might be stupid. How could I have been so rash? To decide so quickly, so hastily? But in that moment, I couldn't control my thoughts, and the involuntary apology left me. I just wanted him to be safe, to make his face shine again. Michael, looking at me, sensed this storm of my sincerity. His eyes filled with gratitude. He leaned toward me, and I felt his arms wrap around me tightly, as if his life depended on this one touch. I could feel him trembling, his throbbing, and with it a wave of emotion swept over me. He started swearing he'd pay me back everything, every dime, whatever it took, just so I wouldn't worry about him. And then, in a burst of gratitude, he leaned over and kissed me. It was a light touch of lips at first, but soon turned into a swift kiss, full of not only gratitude, but also the deep feelings he seemed to be holding inside. I was shocked. In the mix of emotions, as his lips searched endlessly for mine, the world around me disappeared. I could feel him opening up, and in that moment he seemed to confess his feelings, his voice shaking with excitement. You are so important to me. I don't know how I would cope without you. His words flowed like an electric current. I almost couldn't breathe from the wave of feeling that came over me. His passion, his frankness, the murmuring feelings we'd both tried to suppress, suddenly revealed in its true light. In that instant, I realized that the extreme measures were not the result of foolishness, but of necessity. We were both on the verge of something new, something that could be both salvation and ultimate disaster. The embrace grew closer and closer, and I sensed that this moment was a transitional one that would change our lives forever, but I didn't know if we were ready for that future. When Michael embraced me gently, the moment seemed like an eternity. I felt his warmth filling my soul with light. For a brief moment, all my worries and problems faded away, replaced by the happiness I'd longed for, and the melodies of love rang in my heart. I couldn't help but think about how long it had been since I'd felt so good, since I'd felt so needed. He called me his savior, and the words struck me like a bolt of lightning. I felt his lips touch mine, and waves of joy surged through my entire body. In those moments, as he held me close, I felt strong and desirable. I dissolved in his arms, forgetting about time and the fact that real life was waiting somewhere outside this kitchen. His hands, light but steady, slid down my thighs, sending shivers down my spine. He touched my neck gently, making my heart beat faster with the caress. I couldn't believe this was possible. Never before had I felt such boundless happiness and passion. Everything around me changed. Even the air was filled with the sweet sensation of love and understanding. But suddenly I thought of the money that was in the safe. I thought of the cash I'd been saving for a rainy day. My plan was tied to them, but now they could save not only him, but us. I could give him the amount that would help him solve his problems, bring us closer. An inexplicable determination swirled inside me. Wouldn't that be true support for the man I loved? As his palms explored me, I didn't notice I was making a mistake, losing the line between reality and dream. Thoughts of his debts and future began to mingle with the magic of the moment. I could feel his breath, his warmth, and I felt like I just had to help him, because otherwise how could I believe in this love he had promised then? He needs support, and I need to be there for him, my gut told me as his arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer, and he whispered words of tenderness to me. Thoughts of more than just physical intimacy swept over me. With every touch, with every kiss, I realized it wasn't just passion, it was something more, a feeling that swept over me like a storm, tenderness, caring, wanting to be close. Strangely enough, while I was making this compromise, everything seemed perfect around me. For a moment, I was immersed in my dreams. I'll do it, I decided. I'll give him everything, and it will save us. This decision came so easily, unquestioned, for I was sure of my feelings for him. I felt the world around me become more and more insignificant compared to the strong emotions that lived within me. However, I myself did not realize that I was completing my mistake of letting him fill me completely. This experience, this feeling of being loved, was so predominant that I didn't notice how far I had drifted from reality. His touch plunged me deeper and deeper into a world of wonder, where sorrow and troubles disappeared. I forgot about debts, about hidden dangers. All that mattered was that we were together now. When he captured my lips in a kiss, sparks of emotion flooded my senses. For a moment, it felt like this was exactly how it was supposed to be. This moment was ours, and I was perfectly happy. But in the back of my mind, anxiety was ringing. It all seemed too good to be true. I tried to push those thoughts away, to dissolve into the feeling of love, but I was suddenly afraid. No matter how much my soul yearned for that perfect moment, there was still a line between dream and reality. And in this moment of joy, as I sank into his arms, I couldn't have known that this simple serenity held many bumps and complexities. It was here, in this contradictory cocktail of love and fear, that I had to find my way, to realize that true happiness requires more than the desire to save and be saved. I just wanted to be the woman I loved. I needed a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. My husband died, and with his passing took with him a piece of me. I tried to stay strong, built my world, but there was still an emptiness in my soul. The hugs he gave me were replaced by cold everyday life, and life was a joyless routine. I searched for solace, hoping that someday there would be light in my heart again. When Michael appeared, with his gentle words and soft touch, I thought I had found what I had been looking for. But as I embraced him, I let my guard down. My feelings and desires took over my common sense and forced me to open my heart and soul. I wanted to help, to be there for him, to support him in his time of need. I wanted him to feel like he wasn't alone, but at some point I forgot that everyone has their own interests. With every touch from him, I felt important, desired. His embrace, his kisses gave me oblivion, took me away from loneliness. But something about it all was wrong, and now that I think about it, I realize that my feelings were a hindrance. I didn't see how he took advantage of my kindness. His words of love and appreciation didn't apply to me, but to his plans. Soon I noticed that he seemed to dissolve into my world, realizing that I was willing to help. He didn't just take the money, he took a part of me, my sincerity, my trust. I wanted to see him as my salvation, and he was just a ploy to exploit my weakness. When he took the money and disappeared, it was like a whole world collapsed inside me. Mixed feelings, shame, resentment, regret, swept over me. I found myself alone with an emptiness into which I sank even deeper. Had I been so blind to believe his words? In my hopes? Now all the realization of the love I had felt seemed false. Memories of beautiful moments were lost in the humdrum of betrayal. I closed my eyes, trying to remember what it felt like to be loved, but instead felt only bitterness and regret. I didn't know how to deal with these feelings, how to get over this loss. I no longer had an object I could trust. The one who looked like a rescuer was really just a shadow in my open heart. Now I was left alone with a lesson that had cost me too much. Love should not make us blind, it requires caution, not blind trust.